Introducing NASM One, NASM's ultimate membership program. Unlock access to everything your fitness career needs to succeed. Unlimited CEUs, free courses, access to our premium app, and exclusive discounts, all for $35 a month. NASM One is best-in-class tools, cutting-edge certifications, confidence in your craft, and everything you do as a personal trainer made easy, so we can achieve our greatest goals together as one.
You're listening to the NASM-CPT Podcast with Richey, winner of the Sharecare Emmy Award for Social Storytelling and the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hey, y'all, and welcome to the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Richey, and today we're going to try to help solve a debate. It's a traditional debate between coaches and trainers, between athletes and lifters. It is a debate about which is better, free weights versus the machines. The machine, it sounds like they're coming to take us over. Well, so it must be free. The free weights versus the machines. And this debate has really gone on, and it's interesting, right? Because for a long time, I fell on one particular side of this debate till I started looking up some information. And the side of the debate that I fell on was free weights. I think it's a really great, the free weights historically, I've been looking it up. I think it's very important to point out how the benefits of free weights and free weights and free weights. But here's a cool thing is that, studies are better than opinions. And I have some pretty strong opinions about it. But I think we can kind of agree on something that we don't even necessarily need the studies to show us, but that free weights require greater stability. You have to be able to stabilize something. Machines minimize the need for stability, but then it chance leads the lifter to be able to lift heavier weights. So there's kind of a give and take on that. And historically, the ACSM has suggested that free weights may be safer. But here's an interesting thing, that there's actually no evidence that free weights increase injury, except for one thing: the occasional and yet unfortunate dropping of weights upon oneself. And that definitely will make a change. In fact, I have a friend of mine who owns a gym, and I just recently was talking to him, and he was like, "Oh man, Rick, this guy with a dumbbell, he was doing like a dumbbell chest press or a skull crusher. He took the skull crusher too literally, and he popped himself right on the corner of the eyebrow, the boxer's cut, and opened his eye up." And he was like, "Oh man, we had to, stop. We had to bring out towels and help out." And the guy was like, "I just want to keep going." And they were like, "No, no." Now, that probably wouldn't have happened with a triceps machine or a chest press machine. So there is the occasional, but also it's hard in a group setting when you do group classes to minimize that competitive spirit that's there. So I think what we should first do is look up some of the things about research when it comes to free weights versus the machines. And Heidel et al. 2021 found that free weights increase strength the most when they tested free weights, and machines increase strength the most when they tested machines. So if you're doing free weights and you are tested with free weights, you get stronger at doing free weights. You don't necessarily score better on the machines if you've been training with free weights. Now, with the machine, you may not lift as well with free weights because you've been working on machines, but you do get stronger at lifting on machines. So there are no differences observed for strength or power or muscle hypertrophy between the two. No differences between strength, power, and hypertrophy. And it didn't matter if it was free weights or machines. And that surprised me. So we follow up with These are what we need to follow up with ultimately are systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And these meta-analyses are so good for us to be able to consolidate information. And it was the effect of free weights versus machine-based strength training on max strength, hypertrophy, and jump performance. Systematic review and a meta-analysis on these things. Hagen, Varvik, Larson, Hagen, and Van de Toer and Bjornson, 2023 in the BMC Sports Science Medicine and Rehabilitation Journal. So what they did, compiled 13 studies. Outcomes, there were 12 for max strength. 5 of the studies were for jump performance, and the other 5 were for hypertrophy. And this is what it said. And this is a quote. Strength in free weight test increased significantly more with free weight training than with machines, while strength with machine-based tests tend to increase more with machine training than with free weights. Same thing as the other one. However, no differences were found between modalities in direct comparison, that is, free weight strength versus machine strength, for dynamic strength, for isometric strength, for counter movement jump, and for hypertrophy. So the conclusion they take away is that there are no differences detected in the direct comparison of strength, jump performance, and muscle hypertrophy. The current body of evidence indicates that strength changes are specific to the training modality, and the choice between free weights and machines are down to the individual's preferences and goals. Now, to quote them again on their key points, if your goal is to maximize strength adaptations, the choice between free weights and machines should be based on individual preference. The principle of specificity applies, which states that you should choose the exercise you want to be stronger in. So if you want to be stronger at lifting weights on machines, do it that way. If you want to be stronger at free weights, do it that way. But I might point out that there are free weights may still more closely mimic what sports performance looks like. So there's no difference in jump, counter jump, but there might be a big difference in your ability to push off of somebody and stabilize. So sports where there are contact, potentially a better focus on free weight training. Now, just because you're doing a sport doesn't mean that you can't train with machines and then do your sports performance training to get better at that as well. But they said for muscle hypertrophy, one should consider individual preference when choosing between modalities. And they also say that they speculate that the combination of free weight and machine could result in more complete hypertrophy. So mixing and matching. Now, I'm a huge fan of mixing and matching different types of exercises. I don't care if you go through and you're like, what's the best exercise for the glutes, which we're going to talk about later in the week. What's the best exercise? It kind of doesn't matter that much. Yes, it does. You want to practice the best exercises for the muscle that you're trying to develop. However, it could be the best exercise, and that's the only exercise you do. Then you get really good at it, which means that you adapt to it. And via adapting means that you limit the progression after adaptation. I've adapted. I've gotten better at it. So what should you do now? Maybe even a less efficient exercise that gives you a different permutation, a different stimulus, a different impact, a different mechanical strength, a different pination, how it's being done. And that then stimulates in a different way. And it's the variety in that stimulation, in addition to staying with something and getting better at it to create adaptation, and then to work on something else, creating that variety. So what does that have to do here? When we look at the difference between free weights and machines when it comes to how strong you get, if you want to get strong free weights, you should lift more free weights. You want to get stronger at machines, lift more for the machines. But they didn't find much difference in hypertrophy. What they did find is that the ones who did free weights increased more stability. And y'all know how we are over at NASM. We want you to be strong. We want you to be powerful. We want you to have the ability to produce force. And none of that is possible without the stability from which to produce force from. We're a fan of free weights, but I like that the free weights stimulate that stabilization effect more. I would never say don't do machines. I think machines have their place, and based on the meta-analysis, maybe even more of a place than I once thought before. But I do still lean towards free weights because with machines, you don't get better hypertrophy, but it's just as good. You don't get better strength, but it's just as good. And the jump counter jump wasn't any different. But if I can increase stability while at the same time having those very similar strength outcomes, power outcomes, force production outcomes, then I will still lean on my free weight focus, but I'm not going to poo-poo any machines. Not that I did it before, but I am much more open to the idea and the concept of bringing machines in more readily than I was previously based off the meta-analysis that we now have available to us. Now, there are some things about the meta-analysis that this one did not cover, which is other things besides a jump counter jump, or a counter jump anyway. And that would lead us to, well, what about sports performance? And this is not necessarily this one exercise, leading us into a very detailed feedback about sports performance and using free weights versus machines. So that being that, still looking at max strength and looking at hypertrophy, not a lot of difference. So if that's your bag, then that is your preference and you get to choose which one works best for you. And I say, have fun. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, share with your fitness friends and family. If you want to reach out to me, please do so. You can reach out at rick.richey@nasm.org or hit me up on Instagram or Threads at dr.rickrichey. Y'all keep inspiring people to fitness. Thank you for listening. This has been the NASM CPT Podcast.